Yakmala, Yakmala! Welcome back, my friends, to the Cult Film Showdown. I am your host, 8th Dan Stanadu, and I am super duper duper happy to be joined by my good friends. And I have, James Cotta.
You seem very happy.
I know,
yeah,
so happy.
Yes, I did not expect to hear somebody orgasming saying James Cotta's name.
A little zug right off the top.
Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable, to be honest with you.
I'm ready to go. I've opened my beer and I'm in the zone.
You're in the zone. Good. That's very good. And we have Nick Boxer. We did. I thought we did.
We don't have Nick Boxer. That's okay. I'm here.
Sorry, I am here, and I'm glad to be here. Unfortunately, I have trouble with mics. Greetings and salutations.
And then rounding out
and I'll add a duper.
I know you will. Rounding out our quartet of oddities. Let's see now. What's your name this time?
Jack Hall.
Oh. Okay, good.
the king of Zug Zug, you may call him.
The king of Zug Zug. Okay. Well, here on the Cult Film Showdown, we love our Zug Zug, and we also do we love our cavemen? Because that's what we're talking about this time. Some Ringo Starr caveman action in the 85 minutes of fame. And so, James, this one's yours. So tell us. 85.
Well, that's right. 85 Minutes of Fame is every film we bring this season features someone who is famous for something other than film that made their very, very, very extremely well-known name in this case, who is known for a band he played with for a while.
Really? I thought he was an actor first.
Ringo's All-Stars.
All-Star band,
All-Star
exactly.
Band,
Ringo
yeah.
Starr and the All-Star band.
Most people will know him from, yeah.
Exactly. All right. Heard of them. Fair enough. But you have, of course, heard of Caveman. And I don't know if you've heard, this is the best news that we'll have all day, is that Nick is going to explain Caveman to us.
For a second there, I thought you were going to announce there's a sequel in the works to Caveman.
Oh, boy. Especially if it still can star Ringo Starr, then that's all we ask for.
Well, he's the only one we got left. So.
Sign autographs.
Really?
No, Paul McCartney. I don't know who's alive and who's dead. All right. So, Ringo Starr stars in this largely wordless film, language-free film, where he stars as the weakest member of a caveman clan. After he is exiled from the clan for the attempted rape of the headman's mistress or wife or woman.
That's not why he's banned. That's not why he's banned. He's banned because he ended up in the bed with the head of the dude.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it ends in a comedic fashion. So, it's not a serious.
Oh, the whole thing. It's not a serious rape. Rape is hilarious.
I don't know how many times we've had to say that.
Oh, yeah.
It really shouldn't come up this much. So
we should stop watching
Ringo
these
is exiled.
movies.
He reteams with a former exilee played by Dennis Quaid out in the wilderness, and they happen upon Una, played by Shelley Long, and her father,
Tala,
a blind man who's wandering out there, and the four sort of form their own clan. Through a series of trials and errors, they make all sorts of technological and philosophical type advancements, and they sort of learn to survive all the time, sort of living in fear of the big bad clan up on the hill. This new clan starts to gain members, and they continue to make discoveries until there's an incident that sort of forces everybody together, and Ringo Starr and his clan defeat the headman, and they rejoin the tribe, and they all live happily ever after. for a short, brief time.
You talk about the uncomfortable scene as we're watching it now of caveman on cavewoman rape. But this time, more than any other, I get to say it was a different time.
Finally, that's truly accurate.
Well, he did have the skimpiest loincloth, so I guess that was like justification. I don't know. It's very uncomfortable, actually. It was funny as hell, but
I don't know that it's. I don't know, man. It's really one of those things where you can say, sure, this was 40 years ago, but seriously, and I know they're cavemen, but seriously, I'm watching this and going, it's a rape scene where they're playing Bolero and as the music theme, and it's supposed to be funny, and I'm like, maybe Kyle Goldgrave is not the comedic genius that he thinks he is when he wrote this.
You know, it's funny to me that if this scene was in a cartoon, it would seem gentler. Like it wouldn't seem as like he's about to rape her kind of scene. But it is like it's a cartoonish type movie.
It has that Ollie Oop type vibe to it.
Yeah, like hitting her in the head with a stick and bringing her back to your cave kind of moment. Yeah.
Yeah, which we associate, of course, with the caveman thing.
Yeah.
It's just like you see what you want, you hit it on the head, you take it, and that's the way it is. But I think the problem was, to a certain degree, is that this didn't establish itself as that to begin with. It kind of established itself as a kinder, gentler, caveman story to a certain degree. I mean, obviously, what's his name there? The bad guy. What was his name? I don't even remember.
Throck.
Throck. Sounds about right.
But, now, was he played by Richard Mall? I noticed his name in the credits.
No. Richard Mall played the Abominable Snowman.
Yeah, the Eddie.
Tonda and John Matusak.
John Matusak, yeah.
Yeah, big John Matusak, who actually I was looking for John Matusak films when I found this one, because John Matusak, having been in, he was in Revenge of the Nerds, of course. He had
was he?
Pretty sure he was.
What role?
I don't remember.
Ogre.
Now. Yeah, he was Ogre.
No, that was a different actor.
That definitely wasn't John Matusak.
All
yeah,
right.
John Matusak was a football player in North Dallas 40.
So was the guy that
he was a real life football player. He played in the NFL.
Anyway,
yeah.
Moving right along. I knew he had been in many films, and he was most famous as a football player, which is why I was looking for films by him.
And just happened along a film starring Ringo Starr and
yes,
him.
Indeed, which I looked at this ages ago for the show for something else, and then just happened. It came across the list again.
Donald Gibb, by the way, is who you're.
Donald Gibb.
Of.
There you go.
Yeah.
Also would have accepted Donald Gibb in this season.
Even though he's been in like 14 movies we've already done.
That's right.
Also would have accepted Barbara Bach in this season.
Nick's camera's on and it's distracting me.
I'm sorry. Because of his handsomeness?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Clearly.
Well, I want to talk a bit about the tone of the film, because I think it draws a lot from silent film. There is a Buster Keaton film that takes place during Caveman era that I happen to have watched pretty recently, and I think so. Obviously, with a movie that only has like 30 different words used in it, it leans on that pretty heavily. But it also feels quite cartoonish at times too. Like there's sound effect gags. There's a dinosaur that crows like a rooster and also howls like a wolf.
Yes.
I feel like I'm alone in the ring right now.
I know. I actually thought you were going to keep going.
I was hoping someone else would jump in at some point.
Yeah.
But it's like a slapstick comedy. I mean, I don't know. That's what it is, right?
It's definitely a slapstick comedy. I mean, there's no question about it. I think the thing is about this as a comedy is that I feel like the first half an hour it just takes a little while to get into the comedy and to understand the nature of the movie. And then once you kind of understand the nature of the movie, then the rest of it kind of progresses a little bit more apace, so to speak. But I found it interesting because as I was watching it, I was also having a conversation with somebody else, and I had mentioned, oh, I'm watching the movie Caveman. And they said, oh, I just looked that up. It looks terrible. And
now, did they look that up because you mentioned it, or did they look that up because they had actually just looked that up?
No, because I mentioned it. Yeah, it would be an amazing coincidence. You're right.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I was like, this is great.
And then I realized that as I was explaining away some of the occurrences, and it's just like, oh, they just discovered fire. Oh, they just found a big egg and discovered that how to make, like a sunny side up
Sunny
egg.
side up, yeah. I
And
freaking love that bit.
And I suddenly realized that the movie was actually more fun to explain to somebody than it was to watch.
Well, I think the major problem, and the problem that the slapstick doesn't usually work in this movie, is that you can't sympathize with the main character. He doesn't do anything special. There's no redemption arc going on. He just falls flat. In fact, anything remotely heroic that happens in this film is done by Dennis Quaid.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Dennis Quaid is great in this.
Oh, he is.
I guess that's why he ended up in the role of Jaws 3D.
That's right.
I mean, Ringo refuses Una's advances, who is obviously the better pick.
Tala.
And he keeps going after the head woman's woman for Zug Zug. He's
until the very end.
Slimy guy. I couldn't sympathize with him. In fact, by the end, I was sort of sympathizing with the big strong guy. I mean, he didn't really do anything that bad in this movie.
No, he really does. As a hero to start with, anytime you start with, hey, he's taking advantage, sexually assaulting somebody, it's pretty hard to see him as a hero for the rest of the movie. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I think I could have relaxed a little bit and laughed a little bit more because I mean the comedic bits are good. Just if you don't like anybody, it's kind of hard to laugh at them.
Yeah, well, he did show some heroic tendencies later on, but early on, everything he keeps on saving them. And he does different things, but it's all like by accident. He's just a klutz, but he does show some heroic tendencies towards the end of the film. But like when they go and save, Dennis Quaid from the abdominal snowman and whatever, but. As a general
he was
rule,
into it though. He wanted Zug Zug right then.
Well, that's kind of his kind of core motivation through the bulk of the film. Yeah,
that's my core motivation too. So I can't
can't fault him.
Can't blame him for that.
I mean, it's impressive. Like for a moment there, I actually wondered whether or not this even had a script, or if they just kind of winged it throughout.
It had a script.
But yeah, you realize, of course, with all the words like Alunda and Haraka and of course, my favorite Puka, then and Zug Zug, of course. But when you talk about all this stuff, it's just like oh yeah, they're using those words, and boy oh boy are they using those words a lot.
And here's the thing: the weird thing about this movie is, we're going to be using Zug Zug for years now on this podcast.
Yeah, it's true.
So, it's like when you talk about memorable moments, it has a memorable phrase right there. Like that's going to be coming up and referenced again and again.
Well, and Puka's my favorite, because it's just like the whole idea of like when I think of this movie, it's just like this movie is Puka.
What is Puka in the movie?
Puka is broken pain. It's just like there's some that are Puka.
In some theaters, they handed out a pamphlet to people of the what the translations were for the 30 words used in this film, the 30 caveman words.
Which is pretty awesome. I mean, those are the kind of things that would make this even more fun to go see in the theater. Although, What do you think this would be like in the theater? Now, I mean, if you were seeing it, do you think this would kind of be like the movie that you were seeing with a whole group of people who were all into it, or do you think this would be the movie that you were sitting there in the theater and everybody was like staring at it like, what the hell did I just get myself into?
Well, I mean, if the four of us went to go see it, we would have been the largest known gathering to see Caveman. So,
I think that like silent film, it relies on going into the world of the movie. Like, I wonder when you say you were, second screening while you're watching it, like it's an almost entirely visual film. So I think you need to, like, I think in the theater you would be completely immersed in that world.
Mm-hmm.
Because it struck me partway through that I had forgotten that they weren't speaking, that they weren't using full sentences, that they only have 30 words. Like, it just went out of my head because it's so, like, the physical acting and the small amount of words is conveyed with it's all through emotion and actual, what you call acting.
Well, supposedly, but I think that's where my problem with the film comes in is that you're doing a visual movie which requires acting. And even as Barbara Bach herself had said, they didn't, to the Star, they didn't hire a well-established physical comedian like Dudley Moore. They got a musician. They got, not an actor to play that role. And I think that's what hurts it.
I don't know. I think that's selling Ringo's work in the Beatles movies short. He had done 6 or 8 films by this point and was the lead in Hard Day's Night, which was basically like a silent character. It was, him wandering around the streets is a goodly chunk of that film. It's a very.
But he's still not an actor. If he was, he wouldn't have qualified. This film wouldn't qualify for the season.
No, that's not true. He's not primarily, and that's a weird way to go, direction to go. He's not first known as an actor, no. But saying that this also wasn't his first film. This is like his 6th or 8th film.
No, it's not his first film. But he's not one of the top comedic actors of his era. Put it that way, physical actor. Like, I'm sorry. I think that's the problem. I
get where you're going. Like, I mean, this, like I said, this reminded me a lot of Third Age was the name of the Buster Keaton movie that a third of the film is in caveman time, and that's very much what this reminded me of. But obviously he's not a Buster Keaton, and you've also got him up against really, really strong performers like Dennis Quaid and Shelley Long, both very good actors. Jack Gilford, who is a classic actor.
He's a great physical comedian actor. And Shelley Long is, as far as a comedic actor, really extremely good timing. She's really good in this role. Apparently she got the role by auditioning by only grunting, never once not talking English, saying that having her casting director or whatever to be told ahead of time that the following actress doesn't speak English, and then she came in only grunting and doing Uggs and everything.
That's amazing.
So it worked. I mean, she got the role, right?
But I think you're right that like the best comedy scenes are actually Quaid and Jack Gilford, who plays the blind father or person that's hanging out with Shelley Long.
Yes, Gog.
He's hanging out with her. It's never clear what their relationship is. So it's not really that important.
No,
I don't know. All I know is Zingo gets a chance to zug with her, and he's like, "Nah, I'm good." I'm like, "You fool." You fool. I want to zug Barbara Bach instead. I'm like, what? You're cavemen. What keeps one from doing the other?
Yeah, he definitely wanted a monogamous relationship with Lana, but she was obviously, and I think maybe this is the thing, is that once it hits the end, it completely morphs from being this like wacky comedy to being like this paint by numbers. That he's going to wind up with Tala, and that he's going to dump Lana, and things are going to be happily ever after in that regard. And I mean, that's not a problem in that regard, but
that's fine.
Actually,
a lot of movies where I know what.
Sure.
A lot of movies where I know where it's going, I doesn't hurt my enjoyment necessarily. But my question for you guys is, what did Caveman teach you?
What did Caveman teach me? Honestly, a reminder of how visual a medium film is. 'Cause as I said, I just forgot partway through that there's. I mean, much in the same way that when I watch a silent film, there's a point where I just forget no one's talking. I just forgot that there's no, speeches and lines of dialogue and confrontation narrative and speeches between between Ringo and the big bad. It just the storytelling is really strong. Otherwise, just the way it is.
Okay, you know what it taught me? That the cavemen of 100 zillion years, October 9th, 100 zillion years BC. That if nothing else, their facial hair was really well trimmed, really kept. Dennis Quaid has absolutely no facial hair. The beards are perfectly trimmed and coiffed and look fantastic. I think for cavemen, it's nice to know that if nothing else, that your personal appearance was the most important thing.
Yeah, it usually is.
Grooming, yeah.
I learned that.
I learned that the Ice Age was a place, not a time.
Good point there. Good point. And I learned that
in a nearby Ice Age.
Yes, that you can simply just crack somebody's back, and they learn how to walk upright immediately.
Oh, that was awesome.
Apparently, the key to having a good back and good posture. Hugs.
That's right. Hugs help.
Yeah, serious, big hugs. And if you're Tonda, then you need about 4 people standing on your back, because you are that strong.
All right. We was ready to score this one?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were ready actually probably about 15 minutes ago.
All right. In our search for the ultimate B movie, we rate each film in 5 categories. None of these categories is objective quality. The first one is called Schlock Appeal, and we start with Stan.
I think that for me, this is one of those cases where, for about the first half hour, I wasn't really into the movie. Maybe half hour to 45 minutes, and then in the last 45 minutes, I did, like you, I kind of got into it and forgot that there was no talking, and that things were progressing nicely, and I enjoyed that. So it's not there's a lot of schlocky stuff in it, but of course it's a slapstick movie. So I'm going to give it a 6 because it's not perfect, but there's a part that I enjoyed.
This is a gimmick movie, which puts it pretty high on the schlock. Unfortunately, it's kind of low on the appeal part of our score. So 6, I think, is the correct score.
I'm a little bit less. I got a 5 on this one. It's lighthearted fun, but it's only mildly fun. I can't say any movie without the stop motion special effects that this one has. It doesn't have some schlock to it, but it's not super high. So 5 for me.
I'm kind of in the same area. I mean, it's it doesn't quite commit enough to the schlock for me, but overall the concept has a lot to it, and it's certainly a film that I had not actually seen it before now, but I had heard about it for many years because it just shows up on those kinds of lists.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
5 for me as well. More heart than budget. Did anyone see a budget?
I looked. I could not see a budget. No.
Right.
We know it at $16 million box office. It was considered a box office failure, so I'm guessing the budget probably is somewhere slightly above that, but that's just an estimate.
This is such an odd movie to score in that regard, just because, the special effects are cheesy, the whole, big eggs and stuff like that they have, they have all this stuff, and it's all cheesy and it's all fun in that regard. I think the weird part is the hiring of Ringo Starr to me, and Ringo Starr's a funny guy, but it's just this odd moment of like, wow, you put a beetle in Caveman, and it's so kind of weird. But so I don't really know where to go. I feel like this is just a 4 though.
That's you, Nick.
Yeah, no, I'm just contemplating.
Taking all that in.
Yeah, just gotta think about it for a little while.
Actually, I'm just trying to remember what we're scoring.
More heart than budget.
More zug than budget.
Oh, right, heart. Yeah, I had a train of thought going there, and I lost it. Heart. Actually, I always assumed, because I've seen this on TV off and on over the years, that it was a passion project by Ringo Starr. Obviously, from the way you guys are talking about it, that is not the case. He was sort of a hired hand. But, you don't make a movie with 30 words that nobody knows going in without a certain degree of passion. So, you know what? I'm going to go with a 7.
There is a certain sweetness to this movie. An innocence to this movie. I mean, we talked about the uncomfortable scene at the beginning, but there is certain, I don't know, quality to it like that it is, a PG movie and really, yeah, the innocence is what gives it its heart to me, that manages to be there. So, I'll give it a 7.
You mentioned it's PG, which is a weird thing for this movie because so much of the movie actually revolves around sex. Do you think it would have worked a little bit better with breasts?
Yeah.
Well, everything would.
Well, yes. I mean, yeah. But yeah, I think that's I think Jack makes a good point that it's not a Revenge of the Nerds style attitude towards sex. It is like I was saying, a cartoonish approach. Like it's like the dog chasing a car. I don't know that Ringo doesn't really know what to do with Barbara Bach when he catches her. So I think I'm kind of in that. I'm in that zone. I was only gonna go a 5, but I'm going up one more because Ringo and Barbara Bach met on this film and are still married.
That's impressive.
I think that itself is worth an extra bonus point there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still leaving it a 7.
Yeah, yours retroactively wanted the 6 to a 7 for you.
Yeah, that's basically true. As soon as I said 7, I wish I had said 6. So
yeah. What the fuck moment?
Hard one to score again, just because I think that it's so. I mean, these are designed to be like that. Now, you talked about before the dinosaur rooster that made all the noises. I mean, that's great. What a great addition to the movie. The sex scene by itself, in and of itself, is what the fuck, because the rest of the movie does not illustrate that the sex scene should exist in that regard. But I think it is played for laughs. And I mean, there's so much, of course, when you've got him trying to push Tonda off, and then Tonda with his arm and leg around him and stuff like that. I mean, so of course it's amusing, but just its nature almost doesn't fit in the movie. I love Gog the Blind Man because he has just this amazing ability, even though he can't see, to actually sense things and kind of see them before they happen. And it's just like a few times there's these moments where it's just like his arm just goes up a couple of beats too fast for something, and it's just like
he when he gets separated from them, he certainly finds them pretty easily for a guy who can't see.
He does a great job. I noticed with the score, I loved when they discover fire and they ripped off "Thus Spake Zarathustra" in it. I thought that was fun stuff. I love the fact that Atouk runs a very, very progressive clan. Because it's just like they have everything. They're allowing the women. They even have a gay couple. I thought, this is fantastic. I mean, good work on you. And then I enjoyed the caveman ice capades that occurred in the Yeti's cave. That was a lot of fun. I mean, it's, again, a lot of it's designed so it doesn't necessarily come off as what the fuck moments. I'll go with a 5.
For me, the biggest WTF I think was the poop scene. The whole tribe steps in a giant giant dinosaur turd of some sort. And everyone's reaction, other than making faces that it smells bad, starts digging around in it, yelling "Una," the word for food.
Well, no, because they were looking for the little person that they had as part of their tribe. They thought that he was stuck in the poop, but he was behind. Sorry?
Did not
And they were planning to eat him, I
get
said?
that at all.
Yes, he
I
was.
just thought the reaction to poop was to immediately dive in and start rooting around in it.
No, it's
it
because.
Isn't?
Well, some people.
The other thing I noticed was his finger catching fire when they discovered fire. Actually, him holding his finger long enough in flame for it to catch fire.
People might have been more flammable back then.
Yeah, that was a little weird because it wasn't really played for laughs or anything. This one's not over the top for WTFs. I'm going to go with a 4.
Yeah, a 4 is a pretty good score. I'm going to go even one lower and go with a 3. I mean, it's one of these things where we've seen this before with these slapstick type comedies where it's really tough to have WTF because most of the moments that would be WTF in another movie are on purpose in this movie. And so it's just all on purpose. The one for me, I'll repeat. Playing Bolero during the to me is just I can't get over. That was a huge WTF. I'm like, that's an odd choice, man. So that's it for me. I'm not huge on this category, unfortunately.
The music choices were quite clever at times, and there's a scene right before the discovery of fire where they've kind of gathered together a new clan of misfits, and they all play and sing a song together that I swear to God is the Ewok song from Return of the Jedi.
Jump.
It sounds so much like Yub Yub. And
it was so familiar. I was trying to place it as well. I did not go with that, but
it's
with the Ewok song, but it was familiar.
It's 2 years earlier, which means that the Ewok song would have lifted from this.
Which seems hard to believe, but
it's like it is just. But it really has that. It really has that same feel. We mentioned kind of briefly that there's a scene with this like ridiculously giant egg that's about 15 feet long, and Ringo's group grabs it, and then they have to hide out, and the bad guys get it, and then they drop it, and it falls on top of a like a hot spring kind of. It heated something coming up through this hole in the ground, and it cooks it. And then which is it's clever and funny, it's cartoonish. But then they eat as much as they can, and then they walk away with strips of egg over their shoulder. Like, how do you carry that away? Like, once you don't want to waste it. I mean, like this is enough protein to get you through the next 3 months. But.
And it's like the egg sweater, the egg scarf that they're wearing.
Yeah, it's just like a hunk of carpet sample that they put over their shoulder that's supposed to be cooked egg. So it's still only a 5 for me, though. Memorable moments.
Well, I mean, you totally sold me when it comes to Zug Zug and Puka. Like the words. I mean, the words that we remember because I mean, of course, we're doing a generally terrible job with the character names. So, but it's just like when it comes to a couple of the words, they're going to come back. I'll remember seeing the Ringo Starr Caveman movie. I won't necessarily remember a lot of the parts in it. I don't think. I think there might be a decent sum that comes back up. Can't say which parts, but I'll go for a 4.
Yeah, actually. Zug Zug and the cutest freaking dinosaurs I've ever seen. They are darling little dinosaurs in this film. The fact that there's no words in the film actually, I think, will make it less memorable. But it was interesting, and what hit, I guess. So 6.
This is a weird one for me because I never saw this until right now when we did it for the podcast. But years ago, this came out when I was 8 years old, And I was 8 years old, and I went to my parents had friends who had an older son who was 13. He was 5 years older than me, and he had just come from seeing this. And I was bugging him. I'm like, so what'd you see? Caveman with Ringo Starr. I had no idea what a Ringo Starr was. I'm like, is it any good? He's like, yeah, it was all right. I'm like, was it funny? Was anything funny? Tell me what was. And he's like, yeah, it was kind of funny. I'm like, what was funny? He goes, there was a scene where they smashed a fly and it got all this gunk all over his face. It was hilarious. So I waited my whole life to watch this one scene. Waiting in anticipation, knowing that if nothing else, I'm going to have one hilarious scene in this. And then it happens, and I'm like, that was it? So the impression this made on 8-year-old me is a memorable moment compared to the reality. Like, the impression is a 10. The reality is a 1.
Well, especially the fly scene. Like, I can understand if you talked about some of the dinosaur scenes, the egg scene for sure. Like, if you'd mentioned that, fine.
Nope. The fly scene, which is like really quick and not
particularly funny.
Anyways. Yeah, so I don't know what to do with this, but I will say the Zug Zug, the scene where they're singing, and I thought the one effect that I really liked was the Abominable Snowman, and to tell you the truth, Richard Mall, he did a really cool job. Like, if you look at like the way he like moved his arms and walked and stuff, like he put a lot of effort into that character. I remember that. I think that was a really cool character. It'll stick in my mind. So
yeah, he had like Muppet-like movements, like a puppeteer would. I was impressed by that as well.
Yeah. So 6 for me.
I was gonna go a little lower on this, but then I used Zug Zug in a sentence so many times since I watched the movie. And also I have one of those like childhood type stories. The first time that I saw a Dirty Magazine was a Playboy that had one, and they had done a feature on. It was mostly like, topless scenes in movies. It was like, celebrity skin kind of feature in the magazine. But a photo of Barbara Bach from Caveman was in that. And I had not seen any other Barbara Bach movie, but when I saw her later in in the James Bond, I'm like, well, that's the woman for that magazine. Who's that in that Caveman outfit?
Yeah, it really, honestly, it's not even so much the Caveman outfit. It's not the top. It's when she was doing some cleaning or something, and for no reason, she was just shaking herself back and forth doing it. I'm like pretty much transfixed. So, yeah, that's memorable.
All right, up to a 7, though, for the Zug Zug. And crazy concept.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when you talk about having an incredibly slapstick comedy taking place in caveman times, that by itself, that earns some score. All the stuff that's in it. I mean, you talk about the dinosaurs, you talk about the Zug Zug, you talk about the fact that you're selling a movie where it's just like, so what do they talk like? Oh, they have 30 words. That's pretty much the extent of it. And then it's just like, okay, well, who's your big star? We're going to get Ringo Starr. and it's just like, really? And you sold this as a concept. So I'm like, that takes the balls of steel right there. So I'm giving this a 9.
Wow, I'd like to go high on this because, I mean, it is sort of crazy, but really, they were planning on marking this with obviously with their choice of actor as like this avant-garde thing that would probably be watched with like The Head and all these other films in that 70s psychedelic thing going on. But then again, it is also a silent film or not a silent film, a wordless film in an era that didn't do such things. So I'm going with a 7.
I'm going to go with an 8. I think the film itself is pretty pedestrian. Like once you get into it, we talk about like you can see where it's going, that he's going to end up with Shelley Long and not Barbara Bach and all this stuff. Like you could totally see, he's going to vanquish the villain by the end. And like, it's completely extremely, I think pedestrian, but then you get into, hey, we're gonna make a Word Without Moves with a guy who's best known for playing drums as the star and all of that, and we're gonna have stop motion animation, but we're not gonna try and make it good because we're gonna try and make it funny. So we'll get the guy who did some stop motion animation from Flesh Gordon and give him a co-directing credit, and then deny him it. I don't know. I think an 8 is good for this. I think this is pretty damn crazy.
I opened up the I was curious how they pitched this movie, and so I opened up the original movie poster. There's a painted movie poster,
which is great.
The tagline is "Back when you had to beat it before you could eat it," and it's like, you know, it's all of our main characters beating up a cartoonish dinosaur, and Ringo's hitting it in the head with a stick. I'm now distracted because Shelley Long has a frying pan.
Yeah, that's true. She does have a frying pan in this poster. And I mean, I love this poster. It's one of my favorites.
Amazing. We'll put this in as the show image.
Oh, they did fry that egg, sorta.
That's right. It's thematic, I guess. But I think all of the things you said. I mean, making all of this pitch and then saying Ringo Starr is that's balls of steel right there.
And also, the fact I know that he has some comedic background, but just the fact that the guy who's best known for writing the first 3 Jaws movies is the guy who you choose to write and direct this film, to me is a crazy concept that you trust to give him the money for it.
All right. Well, that does bring us to a grand total, and the total's pretty respectable, 59.5 out of 100. That puts it right below Class of 1999 and right above The Weird Man and Revenge of the Nerds.
And can I say just
weird, actually, 'cause Class of 1999, as you guys know, is the best movie we've done yet.
But I just want to say, like, and maybe I should have bumped my WTF score up, but like the score being done by Lalo Schifrin, who did the Mission Impossible theme, Bullet, Enter the Dragon, Dirty Harry, you know, it's just like
it's a weird group of people that they brought together for this movie.
And it's just like this guy is great.
It's like the credits are a Mad Libs. They
just... Oh, yeah. Everybody just... It's they all wanted to work together, and this was how they managed to do it. And because of that, it doesn't necessarily work. But, you know...
Yeah, it's like there was a writer's strike, and that was the only script they could choose from.
Now, was Phyllis Diller on Skidoo at this point? Why wasn't she in this movie? She would have fit in perfect.
She actually would have fit in perfect.
Yeah,
she wasn't in Skidoo.
It would be good if she had been in Skidoo, mind you. Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Carol Channing is who you're thinking.
Carol Channing. Yeah.
That's okay.
Both of them.
I thought Sean Cusack was in. Folks, we've been recording these in the morning most of the time, and we're not recording this one in the morning. I think it's like all of our brains are Swiss cheese from all the time travel. That's what I'm pointing.
Yeah, but the weird thing is we're all still drinking.
That's just the nature of the work.
Just never stops. All right. Jimmy, do some business.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are sponsored by WeTalkPodcast.com. That website is where you can go visit the Octagon, our ongoing list of our search. You can also sort every film by its final score, but as well its score in each of the 5 categories that we mentioned earlier. We are also on Instagram at Cult Film Showdown, and We Talk Podcasts has a Facebook, and they have a Twitter, and we would like you to subscribe and review to the show wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Yes. Well, this season, our 85 minutes of fame or shame, whichever you prefer, wraps up next episode with Stone Cold, starring Brian Bosworth, the Boz, if you will. And so, you know, it's always good to get a nice action movie in there because we know that action sells for this show. So otherwise, I think our puked brains are probably not ready to go too much further. So does anybody have anything else to add?
don't forget, we'll also be checking or giving our films for the next season, which is, I don't know if we have a name for it. What is it? Sibilly the Best?
Sibilance.
Sibilance. Okay, so on Sybil Danning. So 8 films of Sybil Danning. We could call it the best damning show ever. We could call it Danning show. We could call it Sybil Danning next season. I have it. Sybil Danning causes the Cult Film Showdown to masturbate. That would be a good title for next season.
I see. I want to do something with 8 films of Sybil Danning, and there's the famous story of Sybil. The person with the multiple personality. Yes. And then I'm like, well, what's the book that's based on? Well, it's just called Sybil. That's not going to work.
8 films, 8 personalities. It makes sense.
Like it would have if that thing had a better name. That stupid book had a more gripping title. The Many Faces of Eve, for example. We could have made that work.
Well, we'll deal with it as it is, but let's get ready to go. So for Jim and for Jack and for Nick, I am your host, 8th Dan Stanadu, and thanks for listening to the Cult Film Showdown.
The dawn of civilization. Primitive, dangerous, exciting, wet, and sloppy. Caveman. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs a leader. Will it be Tanda? He is strong. How about Gog? Gog is out of sight. And Atouk. Atouk sounds good. Atouk will be the leader of the Stone Age. He will teach man to walk erect. He will discover fire. He will invent roast chicken. And fried eggs. Sunny side up. He will inspire the men. And zug-zug the women.
Atouk Tala zug-zug?
Yeah. Atouk, zug-zug, Lana.
He will protect them from all the beasts of the earth. Ringo Starr, Barbara Bach, Dennis Quaid, Shelley Long, John Matuzak, Avery Schreiber, and Jack Gilford. Caveman. They don't call it the Stone Age for nothing.